Okay, good morning. It is a nice Saturday morning here in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm trying something a little bit different today. I don't know if people want a cam for me as well as the art in my streams, so I'm trying out using an older cell phone that I had as it still works on Wi-Fi as an extra camera. So we'll see if this works. So I'm gonna do kind of an above angle for this, and I'll do something with a little more of a direct camera, probably tomorrow for my book release. So today I'm also doing something a little different with painting in a number of ways. But this is actually more of a personal project painting. Grab my erasers stuff. Um, this picture is something I wanted to just do kind of for myself. Occasionally, I just have pieces that are in my head and I really want to paint them. So this is sort of going to be kind of a dryad with the tree is kind of like her crown. But I'm going to be doing this as a night piece. So it's going to be a little bit different than some of my others. And hopefully people will hear me okay. And I'm also going to try using some copyright-free music in the stream, so we'll see how that goes. You guys, if we get people in the stream, you'll have to let me know if you can hear it okay, and all that fun jazz. But I'm going to lighten a few things up here because I actually, not bumping the camera, that would be good. I actually want to work on my background first. It should be pretty cool, I'm hoping. Let's see. We'll have to see if my camera mic can pick up both me and the music without being annoying. So once we get some people in the chat, we'll find out. Okay. So I'm also going to be doing a demo using salt, which is a little bit different because I very much want some patterns with it in my background. And this is going to be kind of a darker or more evening piece. And I'm going to use the salt to make some really cool patterns here for the background. Hopefully, I've done this on a few other pieces. I'm actually not going to worry about painting a little over like grass or bushes or things back here because I want them to be darker anyway. So my background can overlap them. Probably should be using a much bigger brush for this, or stuff's going to dry too quickly for me to add salt. Okay. Figured this would be a good time to test my extra camera idea before I do a big book release event tomorrow. Okay, so while this is wet, try to get some more paint down here. What I'm going to do, and I got to do this in sections because I have to do it while it's wet. It's just normal sea salt. Don't want it to be too fine, just sprinkle some on here. And what the salt is going to do, that song was irritating me, so I'm skipping it. I have to figure out how to get to play just the style I want, but I'm working on that. So the what the salt's going to do is it's going to actually absorb the paint, and once it's dry and I brush it off, it'll have left a pattern behind where I've put it on. And that can take a while, so we might be waiting a bit for things to dry here. This is one of the only cases where I'm actually going to do some of my darker colors first. only because I want to get the patterning and everything in and get the background in and then paint over it and around it. And it's going to have these like sort of butterfly or moth-like creatures that are glowing. So I'm going to be showing how you make things glow as well, which is why I'm kind of painting around them in a weird looking way there, but it'll make sense. And it should also be announcing what music is playing in the chat. So we'll see if that test works. Oop, and I think I painted over one of my butterfly things, so fortunately while it's still wet, since I want to keep that lighter, there we go. Actually, that worked really well. Should probably have just done that for all of them. Put a little more salt on. It might seem weird to use salt, and there's not like a special type of salt you have to get, just table salt, and you don't want anything too fine. You can actually get different size grains of salts if you get like rock salts or different types of table salts, but I kind of like your more, I guess, standard one. It's probably all I need to do for this part, because this part's going to be branches and things, so I don't need as much texture up here. And I'm painting this whole top part darker as well, because even though there's going to be like a green tree foliage up here, because it's more of a night piece, it's fine for this to have the blue to begin with, and then the other stuff will go over it. I think I'll put a little more salt up here. I don't know if that texture is going to hold once I paint over it, but we'll see. She looks pretty good so far. Hoping this isn't going to make my streaming too slow. I'm a little worried the music might be too much, since I am also doing my camera and everything. Hello! You can tell me, does the music work, or should I turn it off? Because I haven't done it with music and a microphone before. I had to find copyright-free music that I could use. And I thought I would like the music, but now I'm finding it kind of distracting, so I might just turn it off. Or turn it down. Just make it a much quieter background music. Which I don't know if the mic will then pick up at all. Okay. Are you one of my Kickstarter backers? I'm trying to relate the name. I hear a lot of names, so. With people at conventions and other things, I'm trying to make sure I try to remember who everybody is. Everybody's got different like screen names and names at conventions, and because we used to do badge names back in the day at conventions, and some of my Patreon subscribers use different names than they use on Kickstarter or Twitch, which is kind of confusing. But yeah, I think I'm going to give up trying to do it with music when I'm also streaming a second camera, because I think it just bogs the the stream down a bit too much. But hello, welcome to my stream. And if you're tuning in or watching a replay and you don't know me, my name is Jessica Feinberg. I am an artist and author, and I live in Tucson, Arizona, where it is starting to get warmer. We're just getting our first hotter week now. And what I'm doing is working on, I usually show a lot of my work that I'm doing for Patreon subscribers, but in this case, this is just a piece I really wanted to do. I had it in my head last night. I sketched it out really quick, and I haven't done anything with like a Dryad or a forest for a bit, so I really wanted to do that. And what I'm doing to create my background is I'm actually creating a texture with salt, which will get brushed off of the paper once it is dry. You can actually see it's already where I first started over on this side, starting to create texture. And hopefully using an extra camera isn't going to make this too slow or laggy or bogged down or anything like that. It seems like it's working okay. And I'm planning to switch it to being on USB versus Wi-Fi, but I need an extra long USB cable that's the right type for my old phone. So one of those coming tomorrow. And a better clamp gooseneck phone holder as well, because mine's really old and I don't actually like the style of it very much. So I'm getting a few new cheaper things to make streaming a little easier. There we go. So part of the annoying thing about using salt is you have to wait for it to dry. And I'm trying to decide how much I want to build in here with salt, but I think it's going to be, you're going to see at least some sort of peekaboo areas through this root and tree branch structure. So and you might hear a cat meowing in the background because she's playing outside the door, trying to get my attention. Okay. And for this lower part, I'm actually going to use my same blue here for some of it, but because I want this nice and shadowy. But I'm going to bring in some nice dark green and kind of mix that in. I'm just trying to create the basic mood and feel I want for this, and then I will get into details and things like that. And I used to worry a lot about overlapping things, but since I'm creating shadows and fun stuff like that, I actually think it's more important at this point to kind of get, if I get this on the camera, get more patterns and things going on. I'm working on those. And it is a Saturday morning, and it is sunny outside. I've had my coffee, so I'm pretty good for a while. Definitely going to take a nap later. And I started art really as a colorist at a very young age. I got obsessed with coloring books and would spend many hours with fairly good colored pencils, just 5 or 6 hours on a piece, probably around the age of 11. So I learned a lot of things about color first. And then I got more into drawing, and I started using markers and eventually digital paint with tablets and things like that. But I kept seeing watercolor pieces and feeling like I really wanted to learn that because there's a lot you can do with the watercolor that's less limiting than markers. They're a lot more portable. They're a lot cheaper. So I tried watercolor a bunch of times and was terrible at it. And kept trying different kinds of paper and different sorts of books and tutorials and things. And eventually started to find some techniques I liked. I took a couple workshops at the Desert Museum here in Tucson, where I did wildlife and botanical illustration stuff in watercolor. And that kind of got me started. And then I just practiced. I think I did, this is just one of my larger pieces, but I did small paintings every weekend for like a year. So I don't think I'm naturally talented at drawing or watercolor or anything else, I think I just enjoy it, and I'm really, really stubborn. Okay, so the inconvenient thing now is that this has to be really dry before I can take the salt off. So I'm gonna do is just turn my paper and let any extra salt that's just sitting on it fall off so I don't have any on the main area here, and I'll try to work on her without touching the rest while that's drying. Normally I would just like leave it for half an hour and come back, but I do want to get started on some of those other areas. Trying to think what color scheme I use. I did a Kodama painting a couple years ago. Okay, maybe more than a couple, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. They used kind of the colors I want to use in this. I'm going to end up blending kind of all these areas together and adding a lot of that same blue as shadows on her. But I'm going to start out by just getting some, because there's burnt umber. I've loved dryads for a long time. That's probably my favorite thing are trees, tree castles, tree houses, tree people. I just love doing stuff with trees. So when I get to do a project for myself, it often involves trees. I think it's really funny. I'm like, I'm going to take today off. And then what do I feel like doing? I feel like painting. So I'm making time off from work to do work. But this is not for any of the specific projects I have coming up or anything. I just really wanted to do a piece that's a little more like some of the others I've done with like full backgrounds and things like that, because I haven't done one of those on stream before. So okay. Let's see if I can get our music going. We'll see if it works. I don't know. I think it was being kind of difficult. I don't know. Might have been the channel I had it on. This area here is almost dry. I can tell. If you try to scrape it off too soon, you can damage the paper because the salt will be too stuck on there. So it's important to really let it dry while I work on the rest of the stuff. Let me see here. About getting us some tunes that maybe work on here. Maybe we'll just try the ambient one. See if that's better. I feel like that's going to put us to sleep, but we'll see. I'm already bringing some of that blue in just to get a good mix here. Actually, that's not bad. Background music. Kind of fits when I'm painting, so I'm cool with that. So all the early parts of watercolor on a piece, you're just kind of building all these, getting rid of a lot of the white of the paper and building all these base larger areas of color that will then have smaller, darker, more detailed colors and shadows and things painted on top. And some of this I really can't do till stuff is more dry, but we'll see. I was really shy about doing a lot of streaming versus pre-recorded videos. But again, I was really shy about doing panels at conventions to begin with too, and now I do a lot of those. So, and I was pretty shy about talking on Twitch, but people have been really encouraging. So, figured we'll put an artist cam here, and I think we're always the most critical of ourselves. So yeah, this first part that I did is dry now. Now there's a trick if you can use your hands to brush it off. You can use a dry brush. One of the things I do sometimes is see if I've got something here to use for this. I was hoping I had a scrap piece of something. There we go. This is just take like a piece of cardstock or a scrap piece of watercolor paper. Since this cardstock's a bit thinner, I'm just going to fold it. Make a nice edge there. And it'll work pretty good for scraping off the salt. I'm going to make a mess on my desk, but it's okay. I will clean it up later. Just have a nice pile of salt that I can scrape into the trash. So yeah, this part here is all dry. And probably a lot of the top. So you can see it made this this really cool pattern here. And it's a great way to get kind of abstract patterns to make your kind of backgrounds for either, like, I use them a lot for night skies, forests, and water, coral reef scenes, mermaids, things like that. You just want to be very gentle, so if something's really stuck, it probably isn't dry enough, but yeah, don't leave the salt anywhere because it's got paint in it. And if you have pets, they might try to look it up, so that's not so good. So I will be putting that into the trash. Which fortunately I have a trash right here. Sometimes I'll just do this over the trash, but since I wanted to do it on camera. Yeah, actually, I think everything except for the bottom is pretty good. I try not to use too much water so it would dry faster. The more water you use, kind of the harder it is to do this part. I know it looks really weird, but... And you can get watercolor books that have all kinds of cool techniques for creating textures. You can use salt. So while salt absorbs watercolor, which is what I've done here, and thus made a pattern that way, you can also use things like alcohol. And if you use like just regular like rubbing alcohol, what that does is it actually pushes watercolor away when it's wet. So it's a completely different way to make textures and patterns. You can lay thread down across watercolor or other things like saran wrap to make patterns on it. There's just tons of things you could do. That part's still wet. Okay. So at least a lot of it, just this lower part here has to just sit a little longer. I'm just going to scrape my salt here into the trash so that my cats aren't trying to lick my desk. Some of my cats like to lick everything. They're just those weird cats. There we go. But at least the top part is all set here. And if you use that much water, it can also ripple your paper a bit. You can flatten it back out by putting it inside something, or if you're very careful, you can just bend without putting any creases in it, kind of in the opposite direction, just slightly, and it'll, there we go. Usually take the curl out. So I'm going to work from the top down, that way by the time I hopefully painted this area, this bottom part here will be dry enough for me to take the rest of the salt off. I think the first thing I want to do is figure out these kind of the tree branches and some of that, but I want to make sure that I'm doing stuff with my glowing insects there too. So go for a slightly smaller brush. And I probably still have a few pieces of salt on here. They'll come off. Honestly, it doesn't hurt to have a few stuck to your painting. It won't really do any harm. So yeah, I'm gonna start. I want to get rid of really all the white. Yeah, hi Dragon Soul. Yeah, I sort of got a face cam. I was actually trying to get one for a bit because people kept they kept asking me, and all the webcams are like super back ordered. But then I got super smart and realized that not only do I have a cell phone, but I also have the cell phone that is one generation older. That still works fine. I just upgraded so it have more memory. So I uninstalled all the extra apps. Just put that right now. It's on Wi-Fi because where I have it, it's a little harder to get a USB cable to the computer, which might be a little faster to do it that way. So I have a 10-foot USB cable coming so I could put it wherever. But yeah, I was trying to actually use both my cameras yesterday, both cell phones, but I think it just bogged the Wi-Fi down too much because they had to do them both on Wi-Fi. Just to do, I was going to try to do a cat cam, but my cats just do not sit still enough. But it is pretty cool if you have a cell phone, you can set it up as a camera for Twitch. And if you're doing it over Wi Fi, you can actually put it anywhere in your house, which is pretty cool. So, yeah, you guys actually get to see me. Hi. I'm sort of awake. I don't look too bad. I think probably for tomorrow, I'm going to move it like a little more central. So it'll be like over that way more. So that when I look at the chat, I'll be looking at the camera. So I'm going to do 2 cameras for my book release. I'm going to do one kind of looking at me, and then I'm going to keep kind of this one here because we're going to show a lot of the details of the book, which I know Dragon Soul already has, but we're also going to show a lot of the concept sketches and art in my sketchbooks. Um, that's kind of where everything comes from, which I don't show very often. I don't think I've shown it to people online ever. I think I've probably taken photos of a few over the years, but unless you see me at a convention and I have my sketchbook out, you really don't get to see them very much. So they're not that impressive, but it does kind of show my process. So and we're also trying using ambient music, but I don't know if you guys can hear it, if it's getting picked up by the microphone at all. And I'm doing a very different type of painting today as well. I think the ambient music sort of suits this one, so yeah, I'm doing something with a lot of texture. I'm doing kind of the salt demo I talked about doing, which hopefully will close to dry on the rest of the salt here. Okay, some of it's still a little damp. And I learned a while ago the way I kind of do tree foliage is I'm going to lightly paint kind of the branches and going up here. And then I'm going to overlap the lighter branches up here with the leaves from the top of the tree. So you'll kind of see them a little bit, but they're kind of more of a suggestion. I didn't know if I should put the music up louder. I was trying to have a little bit of music. I don't know. I was trying some more exciting music earlier, but it was a little too much. But I suppose since I'm closer to the microphone, you guys will still be able to hear me even if the music's a little bit louder. Let's try that. And the music service we're using is called Pretzel Rocks. And Pretzel Rocks actually will put into the chat whatever piece is playing so that if you like it, you can go find it. And it is all copyright free music that we're allowed to have in a Twitch stream and a YouTube video, which I had to do some research for that. I feel like I've had to learn a lot. Like I knew a good deal about the technology and streaming and stuff before quarantine, but I feel like over the last month I have learned a ton more. And I've been watching some other cool artists on Twitch as well. There's a few other artists doing like watercolor and gouache stuff. A lot of people are doing digital stuff, which I also do and have done in a couple of my early streams. And I'm thinking I'm going to do a digital stream for designing the book cover painting for Beverage Beasts. And I actually already have like a template with the text and everything for it. I just have to do the painting for it, which my original concept for that was some dragons coiled around a martini glass. So I might stick with that. I'm either going to do that or I'm going to introduce more tea and coffee themes to it, and I'm trying to decide which way I want to go. If I want to do a whole bunch of different creatures on the cover, or kind of just stick with one main one. So I guess we'll see what happens there. So as you can see where I took the salt off already, I have all these really cool patterns. These work really great if you're doing water or like forest night scenes. It just gives like a whole mood and texture to a piece that's random and pretty easy to create using salt, so that you don't have to try to paint too much of a background. I mean, I'm going to be painting somewhat of a background, but sometimes I do go farther than I want to with my paints, so there we go. Actually, I want to cover this area here at least partly. I still have a little salt left, not just on the bottom, but in various places across here. I'm going to try to take the rest of the salt off now that we have waited for that to dry. And if you have never used salt and you're going to try it on a watercolor piece, if it's a really detailed piece like this one, I recommend kind of just doing some tests with the colors and the salt, the water, figure out kind of how much you want to use and some of that before you, especially if you've never used that kind of watercolor paper before with it, so you know what will happen, so it won't end up stuck on there. And as I said earlier, I kind of just fold up some cardstock or an extra piece of watercolor paper to help take it off, so I'm not really scratching the paper too much. Sounds really weird, but there we go. But it does create some really cool patterns, especially where you have like multiple colors like I do in this corner. All right, almost done removing our pesky salt. You just don't want to scrape it so hard that you're damaging your paper. And if I do this in a coffee shop, I've definitely had some weird looks from people like, why are you putting salt on your painting? That's for your eggs. But it's one of many ways you can create really cool textures in watercolor. And I will try to do something with a demo using alcohol to push paint away too. That works really well for like doing rocks and the textures on rocks. Okay, just going to clean up all my salt here so I don't make a huge mess. Yeah, if you could do this on the edge of a table where you have a trash can, you can just get rid of it. There we go. And now we're all set. So it's a little more of a procedure to do that, but hello. But it does make these really, really cool patterns. Just making sure I don't have any annoying ripples in here that I can't live with. Okay. So now that I've kind of got the top part started here, I'm going to start putting in some of the foliage of the tree. And the reason I put the blue under it is since it's a night piece, I don't need too much in the way of bright green. I really want this to kind of blend in. So I'll probably put some more blue in this even when I paint some layers here. But so what I do for this part is I'm just kind of going back and forth with the brush, tapping the brush and kind of bouncing it on the paper, and that makes it look like leaves. I feel like sometimes our stream is freezing up a little. Hopefully not. There we go. Oh, we got a new subscriber. Thank you. I'm a Nat. That's a great name. Thank you for subscribing. And I'm that silly person who has Amazon Prime. I didn't realize that Twitch Prime was free with it. And I'm like, oh man, I could have been getting cool stuff this whole time. So yeah, if you have Amazon Prime, you can easily link it to your Twitch account, and Twitch Prime is just part of what you're already paying for. And one of the things it includes is the option to subscribe to somebody like me. And what that does is it gets us a little bit of money, but it also gets you some extra features and things on the channel, and it's just a way to support the streamers that you really like so that we can keep streaming. I always feel like the early stages on pieces like this, like a little bit like when you're a little kid and you're working on stuff. Um, did you not know about that either, Dragon Soul? Yeah, if you have Amazon Prime, you already have Twitch Prime. So yeah, if you just have to go, I think if you go to, I'm trying to think of where it is, somewhere in like the Twitch Prime thing, you have the option to link it to your Amazon account. And it does include like one of the free $5 subscriptions a month, and you can just give it to whoever you want as a creator, which I think is really cool. I've been having a debate, but I think mine is going to go to Vamp Feline because I know she's also newer to Twitch and maybe doesn't have as many subscribers as some of the other DJs that I like. So yeah, they also have a whole ton of like free games you get to try and packs for games. I'm kind of mad I missed the Path of Exile cosmetics that were free, so I'm hoping they're going to do it again. So I was like, but I could have gotten those? Dang it. It was purple glowing eyes. I wanted those for my character. Oh well. Yeah, I thought that it was a separate add-on service the way some things are. And you can get just Twitch Prime if you want to. But if you already have Amazon Prime for video and shipping and all that stuff, it does include that. So I was a little like, oh, I feel like that wasn't that obvious. But I think it's because I've had Amazon Prime for a long time and since way back even before it included video. But yeah, it's cool. Somebody gifted me a subscription last night to another friend of mine. They were just gifting everybody subscriptions. So I guess if you really like somebody, go on their Twitch and gift all of the people watching with subscriptions to their Twitch. Gives them some money and it suppresses us and makes us happy. So but yeah, I've had a pretty good experience on Twitch so far. I know I'm still pretty new. I was looking at an awesome artist the other day and she had like 500 followers and I was like, okay, I'm not there yet. But maybe someday. So all I'm trying to do now is just build the appearance of leaves, which looks really weird, but it will look cool when I'm done. And I actually want to bring in some other greens here, probably some lighter greens. Yeah, that'll do it. And kind of blend them in too. And then I'll go to a smaller brush and I'll build even more details kind of on top of these ones. So that's why I extended my branches up, because you're going to see them kind of through these. And I find if you don't do that, it looks weird. It looks like the branches just stop and then there's leaves. So if you put your branches in and kind of bring them up a little lighter, then paint over them, you can get that look of them going into the leaves. Oh, you just got Amazon Prime, so you use video. Yeah, if it not only includes video, but it also includes, the reason I had it to begin with before they did video, is that it includes free shipping, kind of like 2-day shipping, pretty much anywhere. Like if you're sending a gift to someone, or if you're someone like me who ships a lot of stuff for Patreon and Kickstarter, where you need to get office supplies on a pretty regular basis, I find it's just worth the money because I'm going to end up having to speed up the order of at least one thing. And if I have to pay for faster shipping on 1 or 2 things a month, it's the same cost as Prime. So I started with that, and Prime was about $20 cheaper a year at that point, and then they added in video. And if you have a household, you can share at least the Prime shipping, and I think the Prime video with other people in your household as well. So they can order stuff, and it's free. So Amazon's done a lot of things I like. They've done a lot to really support indie authors like me, which is really, really cool. We don't always have a lot of options for selling our stuff, so I love that you can do Kindle Unlimited and read a lot of my books that way, but I still get paid for them. But you only still pay the normal $10 a month fee and get access to millions, if not billions, of books. And they don't keep subscription stuff from Kindle Unlimited. They put all the subscription fees back to the authors whose books are being read. So you actually get paid per page. They divide it all up, which doesn't sound like much because there's obviously billions of pages being read every month. But since there's millions of dollars, you can easily get $1 or two when somebody reads your book as part of their subscription. So that's really cool. And that way, folks on a budget can like just do the $10 and read a whole bunch of my books, which I really like. Okay, so these things here are going to be kind of cool glowing moth-like creatures. And I'm going to actually paint around them. They kind of gonna look like mothy fireflies, if that makes sense. So the first thing I'm going to do is paint around them with some very light green and blend that out for their glow. Any place I think, and I'm not too worried about leaving them light in the middle because I'm going to use my white ink to really paint them. So I'm really not too worried about kind of leaving that. I just want to kind of create this glowing look. Yeah, I think out of the subscribers I have, like 2/3 of them on Twitch are Prime subscribers, which is pretty cool. I'm super flattered that people are kind of throwing that my way. Because honestly, right now everything helps. Um, it's not just that I had some events canceled because I don't put all my eggs in one basket. I don't just count on events, but I know a lot of people haven't been able to keep jobs, and that has meant that they don't, even with stimulus checks, that they're worried about money, so they're not spending money. And I definitely think buying artwork or books or things fall more into recreational versus essentials. I mean, I think they can be essential, but really your food and paying your bills and your rent have to come first, and I understand that. So, it's definitely meant that it's going to be harder for a lot of the indie creators like me to kind of pay our bills. Kind of as a chain reaction. So every person who subscribes, like every little bit, it helps. Every time I publish a book, I keep them, even when I don't stock them anymore, I keep them available in both print and Kindle versions. So that means that you can order a book and my publisher will print it and send it to you, and I'll just get a cut. So I don't have an overhead of stocking it. So that means over time, as a larger library of books builds up, I get royalties from that. I get royalties when you buy my art and t-shirts, things like that. And the fact that those channels are available to artists makes a huge difference. Because it can definitely be, I mean, not everybody can afford to buy an original painting or has the wall space for paintings or art prints or things like that. So yeah, there's going to be these cool magic swirls too, of course, because I have to put those in all of my paintings. But I think we're going to let that dry, and I'm going to start to really work on her face because I really want to see how that's going to come out. So we're going to start going into a lot more detail. And I'm going to start kind of with the same brown, but I'm going to end up putting kind of some blue into it as well as I go, just for shadows. So unlike a lot of my pieces, which are lit from the upper right, this is definitely going to be lit from kind of this area here where the glowy things are. So that means I'm going to be building a lot of my shadows on this side. And once you kind of have your base color like I do for this tree, it's pretty easy to go in with a small paintbrush and just work on building like all of the shapes, shadows, and fun stuff like that. I keep forgetting that I'm on camera now too, which is a little bit weird, but you guys can kind of see what I look like. Hi. Oh, awesome. I guess that's like your first creature books of mine, right? You didn't have any before those? I think you started with my playing cards, right? The last playing cards project, Dragon Soul. Um, A lot of kids and families like my creature books because they're not written for kids, but they are kid safe. Though a few of them can be a little like this one that I just had come out does have like Wendigo in it, so they and like scary hedgehogs and vampire sloths. So I kind of tell people if your kids are okay with stuff like Goosebumps, they'll be fine with the books. There might be a few creatures that are creepier to them, but there's nothing really adult in them. So they're kind of for all ages. I don't really write for kids versus adults because my favorite adults, myself included, are big kids, basically. Um, so you can read the field guides that I write really in any order, and I think that's something of the appeal sometimes for families or kids. A big chapter book can be a little intimidating, especially if you're learning to read. So I've had a lot of families say they like learning to read with my books because they can just pick one creature in any order a day and read that. So, and I have one mom, and I was really sad not to see her, who usually comes by at Festival of Books with her. I think she has three boys, pretty young, and she told me that they randomly pick pages in the books and then pretend to be those creatures. So I thought that was pretty cool. Oh, okay. I thought you did get on the playing cards. I don't know. I try to keep track of where people start, but there's a lot of people. It's hard if I don't have like one name kind of across the board for people too, or one email address. So I'm just looking at where I want to build sort of shadows and things so that this Dryad creature will stand out in the shapes I want her to. I can still see all my pencil lines, which I'm kind of just following. I might want to zoom this in a little bit for you guys. Let's see. So we can really kind of look at her face as I'm working on it. And this is something that is probably one of my favorite types of paintings to do. Um, I think it's funny everybody remembers me for dragons, but one of the first projects I did was just a book of tree creatures, and that wasn't like a professionally published book. That was just an indie printed little booklet that I did, but it was pretty fun. Oh yay! Well, if the books are your first, then I am happy that you are happy with them. I mean, you started with 600 pages between the two books, so that's pretty good. And I'm gonna in the book release tomorrow really be talking about kind of where all those ideas come from. Some of them are from subscribers, but also just how like I research them and kind of generate ideas and how it goes from a tiny little idea to a more finished painting and writing in a book. She's gonna be kind of pretty. She's a more soothing. I've actually done really creepy night dryads before too, kind of scarier ones, but this one's gonna be a little more of a gentle dryad. Well, if you remind me, I'll try to get you guys some more bookmarks because bookmarks are one thing I have tons of. Because when we print them for projects, they don't let you usually print like if I need like 110 of a bookmark, I either have to buy 100 or 200 or 250, and 250 is usually cheaper than buying two batches of 100. So we end up with a lot of extra bookmarks. So I sell them at conventions, but I also just I don't have an issue throwing like a bunch of extra ones in for family and friends when people order things from the store. So yeah, next time I'm sending you like with your coloring book, I will try to remember to. I think I'm sending you a physical coloring book. I was trying to remember to include extra stuff. So when you're in the U.S., including extra stuff doesn't really make a big difference. Unfortunately, for like international stuff, if we're right at the £2 mark, it can sometimes add $10 to the cost. So Oh my gosh, I was actually talking about that painting because Dragon Soul was talking about getting a painting of mine framed, and I said the coolest frame anyone's ever done for one of my paintings was one I did with an angel in stained glass. That's really cool. I think I still have the picture, the photo you sent me somewhere of the frame for that. So you started back with Clockwork Nouveau, which was one of my really early books. I really want to kind of return to a book kind of like that, an art book with, I don't know, I almost want to do like a second Clockwork Nouveau book because I feel like Art Nouveau is much popular again than it was. But yeah, I think I have three coolest photos sent to me by people who've gotten my art. One is the stained glass frame for that picture. One is a photo of one of my youngest fans wearing a t-shirt with my art and hugging one of my books. And that was because it came with a note from her mom where they found out I had like gotten a boy. It was like right when my boyfriend and I got together, and this little 5 or 6 year old said that she was okay with being my number two fan because she understood if I had a boyfriend, he had to be my my number one fan. Ooh, I'm very excited. If you make a frame, please send me photos so I can share them and tell people about it. And then my third favorite picture is somebody who made a really cool display for everything they've gotten of mine, which included about 100 keychains, and they mounted a curtain rod under a shelf and just put like an entire string of keychains like on this curtain rod. It was really cool and different. So sometimes I don't really think about how many people have my stuff because I send a lot of it out, but I don't know, unless I'm at something like a big convention, I don't physically hand it to a lot of folks. So when I actually look at like the number of books I have out there, it's kind of a little scary to me. I'm like, whoa, I made a lot of stuff, but I'm usually so busy making stuff I don't think about it. I'm using a very, very tiny brush. But yeah, I'm glad the camera is working. At first, I was gonna rig it up with my cell phone that I currently use, and then after I set that all up, I had an aha moment and was like, I have the previous generation cell phone that still works sitting here, and it'll still work on Wi-Fi. So why not just use that? So I'm not worrying about like hogging my current cell phone or other things coming in on my cell phone. So yeah, I think she needs a lot more shadows and things on her, so I'm gonna work on those. I don't want to overdo it, but definitely gonna bring her to some darker colors. I think I'm gonna probably bring in some Moon Glow, which we all know is my favorite shadow color. Actually, running out of it in my palette, but I think it's sitting back here. Let's see. So for anyone who hasn't seen, this is how I store my paints. I used to try to leave them in the boxes they came in, but they tend to not have lids that stay shut. So I actually use photo boxes, and I had them from I think a scrapbooking store, and they're awesome for small art supplies because they have snap lids. They're pretty portable. So if I'm going to a convention and I need to take paints, I can load up the colors I need. Usually, if I fill a palette, it's good, but sometimes if I'm going to be away for a little bit, then then I'll take the paints with me, or if I'm doing a class or a demo because people want to know what paints I'm using. And I was watching another artist stream who is doing a really cool, she does really cool paintings in gouache, which is what I learned with, which you guys have probably seen me use a little bit digitally, but is like watercolor, but it's not transparent. And I wasn't using it for a long time for a lot of paintings because physically, like real media, real life gouache is very expensive. But she was pointing out that there's now some cheaper brands. Like she was using a much cheaper brand, and I was like, $20 for a set? What? I'm used to this being like $200. So I think it's kind of become more popular, and now like watercolor, there's some more mid range and not as many high end things. So I'm gonna explore some of that, see if I can maybe get. I don't want to get really cheap gouache, but something kind of in the middle to show some paintings with that. It's a little bit like halfway between watercolor and acrylic. So it's not transparent like watercolor, but you use it a lot thinner like watercolor, whereas acrylic is a pretty thick paint. So unless you thin it down, it can be a little difficult. Yeah, so now I'm getting some good shadows on her. And I sketched out a really detailed piece here, so there's going to be a lot of work on this. Yeah, I was listening to the awesome DJ Mojito last night, and when he started out, he did a couple of slower pieces, and I suddenly just felt like drawing, so I grabbed some watercolor paper, and this is what came out. And I have one other painting I'm working on that is actually a little more of a personal fantasy piece, of a Spider Woman that I would like to get back to as well. So, but yeah, this is the equivalent of me taking a day off. I stop painting what I'm supposed to paint, and I paint other things, which is kind of sad. But I am actually going to take some time off this afternoon. My boyfriend has the weekend off, and he's been working really hard. So I pre-made a lot of tasty food yesterday, so we can kind of just relax. And we even went to our coffee shop and waited in the super spaced out line with our masks on this morning and got actual coffee and really tasty croissant BLT sandwiches with homemade, well, not homemade, but croissants that they make there. They're so good. They're the best ones I've ever had. It was nice to see a few of the people we know working. I mean, they're doing their best. I think everybody is. So I just hope all those little coffee shops and businesses and a lot of the other artists that I know kind of hang in there. I, in some ways, feel worried about things financially as an artist, but in other ways, think I might be one of the luckier artists because I had already transitioned so much of what I do to Patreon and Kickstarter and my online store so that I'd be more accessible to people all over the world. So when local events were canceled, it wasn't as hard on me. But I'm hoping within a month or two we'll be back to normal. I really, really, really hope so. Mostly because I just feel like people are so tense. And I know a lot of people are really worried about work and their jobs and all that fun stuff. And when they're worried about that stuff, it just makes things harder. And I have checked and I will be getting a stimulus payment. I have not gotten mine yet. My boyfriend got his, but his taxes are a little more conventional. But I did check the IRS is a thing where you can put your info in and check. And apparently they needed my bank account info for a transfer, even though I gave them my bank account info on my taxes, because I was paying out versus in on my federal, and my refund that I got on my taxes was state only. So they don't keep, even though I use the same bank account for everything, they just didn't translate that information over. Of course. So I didn't end up in the first batch. And they haven't, if you go back then again and check, it tells you if it's been scheduled or not. And it says it'll appear on that page when they've scheduled it. So they haven't yet, but I'm hoping in the next couple months, hoping that I will have that money show up because that would be nice. Make me less worried. I think a lot of people are in the same boat. So we're just kind of all hanging in there as best we can. And I figured if I can stream art and entertain some folks and maybe distract everybody from being so worried, especially if it's art I'm doing anyway, either for Patreon or Kickstarter, or in this case, just because I really wanted to paint this. And I try to do mainly paintings that my Patreon subscribers vote on every month, but I do fit in like the occasional piece like this where I just really kind of saw this in my head and really wanted to paint it. And I want to make sure that she kind of blends in with the tree, like because she is part of the tree. She's a dryad, but then I also want to be sure that she stands out enough, especially because I kind of want it to look like she almost has a crown here. So I'm going to be really working on those shapes. I like some of the ambient music and not others, but I think once I've thumbed up and thumbed down enough things, I'll kind of learn that for streams. It's just coming along. As I have a little ripple in my paper, it's probably making her look slightly strange on camera. And it'll straighten itself back out, but yeah. So I want to show some more with how I did the glowing creatures on a similar piece from my Earth Dragons book, which is after doing this green and letting it dry, the brush is too small. I'm gonna come back in here with some blue. And what I'm doing is creating swirly patterns around my glowing creature.
I was looking at my menu.
And Daniel's here too. He's playing VR chat with some people. Usually all over the world, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, I get too motion sick to do a lot with VR stuff, which is sad. So, kind of live vicariously through watching some of his stuff. Okay, so once this is dry, do some other stuff here. Okay, so I'm going to outline the moth creature a little bit for these because I want to make sure that when I put the glowing parts in, it's going to work. It'll make sense, I promise. So it looks kind of cool now, but it'll look a lot cooler when I bring the thing I use on all my pieces, which you guys should know by now, the white ink. And I was talking to some other artists and their watercolor pieces, and some people use white acrylic or white gouache. I like white acrylic ink or just white inks as long as they're waterproof because they let you do all the highlights and shapes and stuff you want, but you're not worried about like acrylic or gouache, so you've got to thin it down. Watercolor, if you thin it down to make it flow really well with white, then it is too transparent and you have to do a lot of layers of it. So I ended up finding white ink was really what worked best for me. The danger with ambient music too is that it can make you sleepy, but fortunately I had lots of coffee this morning, so I had a mocha glacier, which is sort of I was originally going to get a hot drink, but I took a walk this morning and it was pretty warm out, so I got a mocha glacier, which is like this cold blended drink, and honestly I kind of wish I had like 10 of them. But financially and physically to carry, that would not have worked. Okay. So I've kind of created these weird little glowy bug shapes up here, which look a little weird right now, and as they dry I will kind of do a lot more with them. That's the plan. Trying to create some cool patterns for my background here. And that will make more sense when I add the white. I always feel like my pieces look very strange in the early stages because I have so much stuff I'm kind of building in layers. And the more you work with watercolor, the more you can kind of see a little bit into the future for like, this is going to look cool eventually. But the early stages can sometimes look a little weird. She's coming along. Okay, so we know there's going to be shadow here. And as I said, I'm messing around having the artist camera, which right now is rigged up above me, and I'll tell you guys how many different things I tried to rig it up, and then I actually used my brain and realized I had a step ladder I could just lean and clamp on at any height behind my desk. So I ended up doing that because I kind of wanted to show a little bit of like an overhead view of me painting. But for tomorrow's stream where we're doing the book release, I might try to move it to more like a front on view for that. And I've kind of been looking at what a lot of other artists on Twitch are doing and if they're showing themselves and what kind of camera and kind of where things are positioned. So I want to be sure too with the art camera here that it is close enough that you guys get to see a lot of the detail of the pieces that I'm working on. So yeah, she's part of the tree, but I'm going to define her kind of body and almost make it look like she's wearing a dress of tree, um, which might be fun. Do a thumbs up on this piece of music. I like this one. I'm a big fan of anything with violin in it. Yeah, so much of watercolor is just building your layers to leave some lighter colors showing, but then also show some darker colors and create textures and patterns. And you'd think it would be kind of boring or repetitive for wood, but I actually really love painting trees. Actually going to use a little bit of green here to put some moss in here as well. I think that'd be cool. And I have a great color for kind of doing mossy things. That looks pretty good. You see me checking the camera on the computer because I want to be sure that you guys aren't getting too much reflection off the wet paint to see what I'm doing. Yeah. So I think we'll probably bring some greens in here. And I've been being very careful about her face. I don't want to go too dark, but I'm definitely wanting to build some more darker colors and shapes in here. And then I'm gonna use probably some white ink to put some highlights in, but I actually think her face is a little on the light side, so I might tone that down. There we go. Yeah. Bring a little bit of my green in here. So I really want at least part of her face in shadow. There we go. Yeah, it looks pretty subtle right now, but I think as I work with some more highlights and things, it'll work. Now remember, if you have paint in a palette that's been sitting there dry and you re-wet it, it's going to take a little more effort to kind of pick up paint than when you're using paint you've just put in there, like this Moon Glow that's much darker. That's why I'm getting too much here. Fortunately easy to correct. So yeah, I think I'm going to paint a lot of her face kind of with highlights. And I don't know how noticeable I want her to be noticeable, but I still want her to kind of be a part of this tree and not be too obvious. I think it'd be cool if it takes you a minute to see her. So yeah, once that's dry, I can really go in there and work on that with some white ink. So what I'm gonna do now that this part's dry, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna finish this today. This is gonna be a long painting. And I mainly wanted to just test out the camera and all that, but I do want to do at least a bit more. I'll rotate this so I don't smudge her face on these moth-like creatures up here. Skip that over as I forget that I have my camera in there now so it can block things. So what I'm doing now is adding white ink to really make these guys kind of glow, which is why I painted them in a little darker so I'd have space to make glowy parts here. I don't know what Daniel's doing. I think he's fighting with somebody in virtual reality. Look over and I see him just gesturing on the other side of the room. I'm like, I don't know what he's doing. There we go. So if you did just get or have Amazon Prime, one of the weird TV shows that I recommend to folks is something that I love because it reminds me of being a kid and of the weird shows I liked as a kid, and it's called Just Add Magic. They did, I think, 3 or 4 small seasons of it, and then they did a spin-off series called Just Add Magic Mystery City that is pretty new. And it's basically about some young kids, a 13, 14-year-old, who end up with a magical cookbook. And some of the recipes in the cookbook kind of get them into some trouble. I mean, they're usually trying to save the world in some way or another, but sometimes it goes a bit awry, to say the least. And almost all the recipes have kind of a downside. So, like, if you use them, you have to kind of know what the backlash is going to be, and the backlash is often quite comical. So sometimes when I don't want to deal with stressful grown-up TV, I like Just Add Magic. I like watching kind of home reno shows or cooking shows or things that where the plot's not going to make me freak out thinking half the characters are going to die, or where it's a good background thing to have on when I'm painting because I can just listen to it. There we go. Kind of looks like some sort of weird mothy insects flying around. Just working on building all their sparkles here. Especially this one because she's holding it. That one's gonna have to really stand out. So hopefully those of you watching on playback, I have a couple friends who play my videos back later, having a good weekend, having a nice relaxing Saturday. As I said, I started off with coffee and food and DuckTales. DuckTales is a good way to start a Saturday, in my opinion. I need to track down, I think one of the streaming services had it, I don't remember which one, but my favorite kind of Saturday morning thing growing up was Garfield. I just loved Garfield. It's probably a sign that I was going to get cats as soon as I could, right? But I kind of like those weird sort of offbeat humor. You know, Uncle Scrooge and Garfield have a lot in common. Though my favorite duck character, and I was so happy that they put him in the newer DuckTales because I don't think he's ever in the original. My favorite duck character is Gladstone Gander. And Donald is incredibly unlucky, and Gladstone is really lucky, and it drives Donald nuts. And I mean, like, crazy lucky. New cars and money and things that just sort of fall at his feet constantly. And Donald's frustration at this is pretty entertaining in the comics, so I was really happy to see them kind of bring him in for an episode of the newer series. We're really behind. We're just watching season one now. We'd started it a while ago, and then I don't know, got busy, and they moved everything kind of to Disney Plus. So I have it turned on just to kind of watch DuckTales, new and old, and Gargoyles, and a few of those, mainly for those old school kind of cartoons. Just adding enough sparkle in here to. I just really want this to look glowy, so I'm feeling like I had too much darker color in there. I'm kind of working on that. The awesome thing about white ink is that you can kind of go back and forth a little bit and really create the sort of effects that you want. And because I'm using a waterproof white ink, I can then paint over this with other colors if I want to bring some more green back in here or anything like that. I have that option, and it'll blend in nicely with my watercolor as well. I think I'm going to blend it here. Just trying to create kind of a nice fade. I just said that this glow was not soft enough, so I'm softening it up a bit here. There we go. It's pretty cool. And then what I want to do is bring some of that nice bright green I had. I'll get that pretty pigmented here, which means a lot more paint than water. The more paint you use, the brighter, or I guess darker but more vibrant the color is going to be. And the less paint, the lighter it's going to be, and more kind of washed out. So you can get some cool effects like this. And my book I did last fall, Summoning Creatures, is all about painting stuff like this, and I have an entire section in it on making things glow. Whether you're using pencil or ink or paint, just some of the different techniques you can use. I'm pretty happy with that. It's kind of glowy. Okay. I was realizing today when I was like looking at myself on camera, I really need to cut my hair. Like, not the longer part, but my hair is buzzed on the right side. And I don't think I've rebuzzed it in like 2 months, and it's just getting long. So I might have to do that this afternoon. Actually, try to look presentable for a book release tomorrow. But hopefully, people seeing me on camera aren't gonna judge me too much by the fact that I am or am not wearing a lot of makeup or fancy stuff, or if I'm just doing art. I haven't quite reached the point of doing art in my pajamas yet, so you guys are fortunate there. But I know a lot of people who are having pajama parties, though. So now I'm going to use that white ink, and I'm just kind of picking out the details of her face in a similar way, because I want this to be lit almost like by moonlight or something here. So there's going to be highlights and things, but a lot of this is going to be darker. And the cool thing about doing kind of non-human creatures is you can really kind of have fun with them as far as expressions and textures. And this is, a Dryad, so she can have some wood grain texture and kind of a more interesting face, I think, than I would necessarily do on a more humanoid or human character. So yeah, I do a lot of stuff in light and then add dark layers and then go back with white ink, which is kind of, I always feel like I'm repeating myself because I do this on so many of my streams, but it's kind of cool to see the process of the character coming to life. I just rinse my brush a lot when I'm using white ink because you don't want it to dry in there. It'll just destroy a brush, which is no fun. Okay. I'm just going to let that dry. Sometimes if I'm not sure how much highlight or shadow I want, I'll kind of go back and forth a bit and until it comes out more or less the way I want it. I think it would be cool. We'll see if this will work. I think I kind of want her to be almost like a moon goddess Dryad, so I'm going to put a crescent moon on her forehead. Kind of want to tell that she was wearing a crown of branches anyway, so this will kind of tie into that. Because it's a pretty big painting, but the Dryad herself on the paper is pretty small, so I'm just working on details with a pretty small brush because of that. And I don't want to get a big gob of paint on my pretty small brush. Just making sure she's got nice dark eyelashes. Yeah. A lot of times the paint will look darker till it dries too, just because when it's wet it tends to look a little darker, and you get kind of used to that with watercolor. And what's kind of compensating for that is your painting. Yeah, she's starting to get the feel I definitely had in my head. I think this music is kind of fitting, so I think if I were doing a clockwork creature, I'd probably put us on like rock or pop, but I think ambient is good for forest dryads. And sometimes it's useful for me to like look at the screen, so I see me doing that, not just check the chat, but I'm looking kind of at the piece from a different angle and perspective that I'm seeing it because it's more zoomed out in many ways on the screen. So, but I think I can zoom us back out here so we get more of the whole piece there. You can really see how small her face is in comparison. And I talk about this a lot on streams too. I always do the faces more detailed because they're the focal points. talked to some people yesterday in a chat who were feeling, not one of my chats, another stream, who were feeling I'm discouraged about creativity, and that always makes me sad. I think creating is such a beautiful process you can enjoy with life. So I think people get blocked when they get too worried about doing it right, too judgmental of themselves, and I don't always know how a piece is going to turn out. I have to kind of let it be what it's going to be, somewhat. But I have found that if I enjoy the process, it always comes out better, and that always makes a big difference. So try to do that as much as possible. And I think I'm going to try to do a design stream at some point where I kind of show more of I will be right back. Apparently, I need a timeout. Okay, I'm back. We both decided that we needed some water, so I'm trying a different pretzel station here. So we'll see how that works. We picked happy music, so we'll see what happy music sounds like. Make sure I don't have any more salt stuff to this now that it's dried. But she's really starting to look cool, huh? All right, so one of the things I do, even though I do have kind of a background in here, is I need to build a lot more into this background. I mean, I need to do a lot more painting on her too, but I want to really start building this background more. I know there's going to be some grass in here. And probably those of you seeing me on camera here are going to be like, that's not what you look like, because you usually see me at conventions where I do like really heavy eyeliner and jewelry and makeup, which that can get a little bit in the way of painting. I'm going to be doing a little more of that tomorrow. I'll get a little more dressed up for our book release event. Okay. I'm trying to kind of paint around the mushrooms I'm planning to put in here. They always put weird little mushrooms in my paintings. I noticed a lot of other art streamers don't talk in their streams, which I don't know. I mean, I feel like if you're streaming at some point here, you should just be talking to people. So, especially if you're kind of doing a little bit of a how-to, talking about your process, or trying to make sure I talk about thought processes just as much as I talk about kind of the actual literal colors I'm using and how I'm putting paint on things, because a lot of things that get in the way for people's creativity are like they're more mental than they are the physical skills and things that you learn. Just leaving my mushroom tops. The bottoms are going to be more brown anyway, so actually it's probably fun for them to be light brown. So I'm going to paint over them. They're probably going to be white or red mushrooms, but sometimes it's better to get your kind of your base colors smoother and there in the way that you want them before you try to leave details, because it can look weird painting around things. So it's a little less sleepy than the ambient music. Now I feel like I should be like in a club or something. Okay. See if I can get this a little more on camera. Okay. So yeah, what I want to do is kind of really work on her roots. That sounds a little weird, but she's gonna have kind of this mass of moss covered roots down here, so starting to work on building those shapes a bit. I kind of had a general sketch for what they were going to be like. I don't tend to overly plan out too much with roots anymore for something like this, because I've done dozens of paintings with tree roots, so I can kind of freehand these a little more. I love creating cool little textures and things in the watercolor. We'll try to shift this a little up. I probably put the camera too close to the stream, but I really wanted to show a lot of the details. Aw, that's sad. Oh, it's so nice of you. Thank you, Emanette. I've seen so many wonderful people on Twitch just kind of supporting each other. Um, Creators supporting each other. People who want to learn to paint or just like artists. Like it's even though Twitch was originally mainly kind of a video game streaming community, I think it's grown a lot. I do have a few friends who stream video games though, and I've thought about it, but it's like I'm already streaming all this stuff. If you guys want to see all my recreational streams too, I've thought about it. I've gotten a lot of good gear in Path of Exile recently, but I could easily start another character. This one's kind of weird. I don't know if I like this song yet or not. I guess we'll see. Okay, it's growing on me. Yeah, I'm just trying to create kind of tree root patterns, and she's actually got these cool bigger roots on this side that I'll work on a bit. Sorry if I'm doing stuff a little off camera. I keep forgetting that this corner down here is a little bit blocked by my other camera on the feed. I keep forgetting I have a second camera on there, so I try to be more careful about that. Hey, hi Michaela. Yes, I did. I actually added a phone cam. I'm using my really old cell phone. I had a Droid Turbo, and then I think I went to a Turbo 2, and then I went to a Turbo. Oh god, we're not even on turbos. Then instead of a Turbo 3, we went to Z Force, and then a Z3. And so this is my old, my first generation Z Force, and I just took all the extra stuff off the phone and just have it on Wi-Fi. You can get a cool app. There's a lot of apps. I'm using an app called Droid Cam that just goes to software on the computer. Splatoon music. Yeah, this might be a little too techno for or digital sounding for this stream. I don't know. I'm not used Pretzel a lot before, so they have a bunch of different sort of basic categories you can pick, and then just moods. Let's see what this is like. I'm gonna try it on the one that says chill. That's a little better. I think the ambient one was too chill, so we'll try it on the chill one and we'll see. Yeah, I was noticing a lot of artists streaming with music, and I'm like, how are they doing that? Because I know there's copyright issues, and then I found out there's a couple different services that do music just for streaming. That is copyright-free stuff that you're allowed to. I mean, not so use in a project, but you're allowed to have it in your YouTube or Twitch video. So, because I've used music like that before, but I'm usually looking for like one piece of music for a Kickstarter video or a YouTube video versus something for a stream. So I've had to kind of work on that. I could totally. I actually was thinking it would be neat to do a cyberpunk piece actually at some point because I'm doing a lot of nature pieces and I've done some clockwork stuff on stream. So yeah, there's so many different things we could do. I might have to go into cyberpunk at some point. I don't feel like there's enough cyberpunk dragons in the world. I've done only a few of them, so cyberpunk dragon would be. I mean, I guess you could consider Tron sort of a little like that, but I think a little more punky. So I'm a huge fan of Jupiter Ascending, which I know some people didn't like, but if you haven't seen it and you like crazy sci-fi designs and space dragons, definitely watch it. I think the reason it didn't do well in theaters is people saw that it was from the creators of The Matrix and they expected a serious movie and they were trying to do like a space opera. So it's very much like, I think of it as somewhere between like the cult classic Mario Bros. Movie and like Dune and Fifth Element kind of all mixed together. I love the designs, the costume designs, the creature designs. I mean, you have like, thank you for liking it, Michaela. You have like Space Wolf Channing Tatum fist fighting like a space dragon, but he's like an anthropomorphized dragon, so he can actually talk and stuff. Yeah, I mean, anytime you're gonna put that in a movie, I'm gonna watch it. Yeah, she's coming along pretty good. So I'm definitely gonna pull. I'm gonna use some indigo blue. I'm gonna darken up a lot of the background as well. I did the light background at the very beginning of this video, so if you missed that, you can play it back later. And I used salt so that it has all these cool patterns. But since I'm kind of doing a nighttime piece and I want to create focal points, I'm actually going to paint over some of it just to make it a bit darker. So it'll keep a little bit of the texture, but I just want to darken a lot of this down, like kind of on the edges towards the roots at the bottom and things like that. I think Channing Tatum gets a little bit of a bad rap because he did. I don't want to say bad movies, but some very, because I enjoyed a lot of his more silly, some very silly, fluffy movies to begin with. So while he could actually act, he ends up getting cast in a lot of roles that like people will dismiss him because he did things like Magic Mike or Step Up, but he's actually a pretty funny actor. So I don't know. I like Jupiter Ascending. It really kind of was a throwback to me for things like Fifth Element, and yeah, everybody was kind of mad that they did not win awards for the costume designs in that movie because I think they should have. I think they were some of the most impressive costume designs. I mean, I don't know how many costume changes they put Jupiter through in it because she makes a point of it. So, oh, thank you. Yeah, I think this is one of the more pretty pieces I'll have done on stream. I'm definitely going to be putting some darker colors kind of here towards the bottom, and then I'll pop some of the grass and things out with white ink, make it look more glowing. I'm kind of mimicking, for those of you who have seen my art going way back, the Forest Spirits Kodama piece I did for Earth Dragons has a lot of similar colors to what I'm doing on this. And yeah, it makes these, where I had the salt, these like really neat patterns. This is always not quite as sleepy as the ambient station, so I'm kind of good with that. And I don't know what it's with me in forest pieces, but I always put mushrooms or toadstools and little glowing creatures and things in them. And I did kind of a similar, I've done a couple of similar pieces to this more in sunlight. And then my more recent book that we're releasing tomorrow, though a bunch of you guys already have it because you were Kickstarter backers. It has lunar and solar dryads in it that are kind of like this, but the lunar dryad's really more of a close up of her face. So, it's got almost the same colors as this, so it's got kind of a bluer background, but it's got glowing stuff. The original is actually hanging on the wall in this room, because when I last time I had money issues, not due to a virus at that point. Isn't what a board game? Dragon Soul's asking if something is a board game. But the last time, yeah, I had money issues, not due to a virus, but it was just looking tight on money due to some events that didn't go so well, like really tight on money. I thought I was going to put up some more pieces for sale, so I put that one up for sale. And my boyfriend and I had just started dating, and he actually got it for us. No, Kodama are they might have done a board game, though you might be thinking of Konami, which is the video game company that makes um, things like Dance Dance Revolution. But Kodama are Japanese tree spirits of very ancient trees. They are from Japanese mythology, but they appear in all sorts of things. They're in Spirited Away. They're little guys with the clicky heads. Spirited Away. but they look like little sort of indistinct people or animals that show up kind of in around really old trees. So I did a piece that kind of had very similar colors to this, but it's been a long time. 5 years probably since I did that. I mean, I think it's weird to say that because I feel like it hasn't been that long since I started making books, but I think we're coming up on 6 or 7 years for my first field guide, which is crazy. I know it's been 7 or 8 since I did my first actually like commercially published book that was just me, not me working on someone else's stuff. And that wasn't something I just printed myself, and that was Dragons in the Library, which was a picture book and a poem, which is sort of like what I'm working on now. I'm working on another piece that another book that has kind of a poem as the text for it, and then really cool pictures. So I need to try to stream some of the designs for that too. I have a bunch more paintings to do for that. Spirits of Kodama. Well, maybe they made one based on tree spirits. I don't know. But yeah, they are very traditional Japanese tree spirits. They've been around for quite a long time in Japanese folklore and mythology. And there's some of the more serious ones. There's some really weird. When you get into like the more scary Japanese spirits, some of them are really strange. The umbrellas on one leg, they can with like one eye. I think that's probably what some of the stranger ghosty spirits. I didn't put those in Rune Dragon, so those are in Spirit Dragon, so those might have to be in a future book. So I've never done. Actually, I've never done the Umbrella Demons. I suppose if one was actually trying to kill you, it wouldn't be that funny. I just whenever they put them in like books or anime or things, I'm like, who came up with that? The idea of an umbrella hopping on one leg with a giant eye trying to kill you. So I'm just working on all the little textures that are gonna make this piece look cool. And I don't want to overdo the details everywhere because like her face has to be kind of the focal point, but I do want to have some textures kind of in the tree itself here, and I definitely want to bring again some darker colors in here. So yeah, if you were watching earlier when I started doing the foliage where I was just tapping the brush, it looks a little silly. Hello. It's actually a really old. It's my old my one generation old cell phone, but I figured out how to use it as a camera because I was just gonna buy a cheap second webcam, and they're all sold out everywhere. So that's cool that there's like I wonder if they. I mean, obviously it must be related in some way, at least in naming to the Kodama tree spirits. Yeah, when I started doing the tree foliage up here, it looked a little silly. Kind of like when you're a kid and you're just tapping paint all over the paper. But then as you go back and build sort of layers of it, it starts to look pretty three dimensional. Work at home buyers. Hmm. Well, welcome. You guys all having a good Saturday morning, and I think it's Saturday morning for everybody. I think you guys are all. I think you're all in the U.S. Um, those of you who I know, they're all in the same time zone actually. So for Michaela, it's probably Saturday afternoon already. But yeah, so the top part up here you'll see doesn't look very three dimensional yet. But as I add shadows to places, kind of what I do is pick out sort of groups of leaves and create shapes with those, it'll really start to come to life. And I do a similar background thing when I'm doing coral reefs and mermaid cities and things like that with this sort of texture, as far as like the salt and stuff, because I think it makes a good water texture. It makes a good sky texture at night. Just makes an interesting sort of randomized thing. So at the very beginning of the video, for those of you guys who joined in later, we created this cool texture pattern. Almost 3 p.m. Yeah, I think DJ, you and Michaela, who's, yep, she says it's almost 2. And she's working on a painting too. Awesome. So yeah, we created this whole texture that's in the background here using salt, just regular table salt when it was wet, and then there was a whole bunch of me scraping it off in the beginning of the video. Uh, yes, I added another camera so you guys can actually see me. Hi. But I'm not wearing a lot of like fancy stuff and makeup like I usually do for events. I'm gonna get dressed up a little tomorrow, I think. More because it's just fun and also because I'm doing a book release, but figure if you can put up with hearing me, you can put up with seeing me. And I did notice a lot of other artist streamers did have cameras of themselves. I just had to figure out how to set one up. Though some of them aren't talking at all, which is so weird to me. Like, you got the camera there. I mean, my camera has the camera that I'm using for the artwork, which is right in front of me. It's like right here, just out of where you guys can see it on my artist cam. It has a microphone in it, so which is pretty funny because the first couple of videos I thought I had to wear a headset even when I was doing this kind of painting, and then I realized I totally didn't need to. So I wanted to do a cat cam as well, but that many cameras over Wi-Fi was problematic, and like my main computer here is not on Wi-Fi. One of my cameras is, the other one's USB. My main computer is on Ethernet, but bringing 2 cameras in over Wi-Fi was going to be a little trickier bandwidth wise, and I think my computer just didn't like that many cameras. I was gonna try to do a cat cam, but yeah, they don't really hold still enough. My cats don't sit there, so I don't know. I feel like everybody else's cat cam has these cats that just sort of veg out and sit there. And mine will do that, but they'll pick really awkward places to do it. I'd probably have to point one at the window in the other room. We have a nice sunroom, and our cats kind of love being in there to chill out. Okay. So yeah, I did a lot of demos of different parts of things on this. You guys can see kind of a little bit of like the glowing stuff and some more of how I do kind of the trees and creating shadows under parts of the foliage here. I think I'm gonna put some more shadows in. But yeah, it looks kind of silly until you get the shadows in. It just looks like you're a kid who went nuts with a paintbrush and spattered paint all over the way you think you paint trees as a kid, which is actually is how you do them. You just add more layers. Thank you guys for tuning in. We actually have met all of the requirements for like the next Twitch thing, which is the partner versus the affiliate, except for number of viewers. We have to have an average of 75 people viewing the streams, and I don't even have 75 followers yet, so that's going to be a while. But if you haven't watched me stream before and you like it and you follow me, that'd be awesome. Even just following us, not even giving us subscriptions, it helps. But I mentioned earlier, if you have Twitch Prime, you actually, or if you have Amazon Prime, you actually already have Twitch Prime, which I don't know why they don't make that more obvious. And as part of that, you get access to a whole bunch of free stuff, and you get a free subscription every month to like someone of your choosing. So you can like pick me or another artist, and it gives us a little bit of money. It doesn't cost you anything if you've already got Amazon Prime. And it also gets you access to some different emojis and lists you as a cooler name in the chat. You get all highlighted because you're a subscriber, and it gets rid of any ads that play for anybody you subscribe to. So I'm debating who I want to gift, which of my many DJ and artist friends I want to gift my subscription to. I think I might kind of rotate it every month. Yeah, if you have Amazon Prime, you actually already have Twitch Prime. See, I am not the only person. You're like the third person. What? Yeah, I didn't know that either. I was like, I'll try the trial, and then just like, wait a minute, this is a full like Twitch Prime. Did I pay for this? And I looked at it and I was like, oh. So yeah, if you're already paying for Amazon Prime for movies and where you get like the free shipping, all you have to do is go on Twitch and link your accounts. And then it gives you Twitch Prime, which actually gives you access to different games for free every month. It gives you a whole bunch of goodie packs in games and stuff like that. Like there's just a whole bunch of perks, and it gives you basically one of the $5 level subscriptions for free a month to anybody that you choose. So yeah, I totally did. I was thinking about Plastic Disease. The thing is, she's got a lot of subscribers, so I might do it for Vamp Feline because I know she doesn't have as many yet, and I really want to encourage her. She's a little newer to DJing and newer to streaming, but I think she's awesome. I love her cat cams and stuff. So, or I might gift it to one of them and then just buy a subscription to the other. I kind of really want to support everybody right now, but I can't afford to blow the money to subscribe to every single DJ that I love because now there's like 10 of them. Uh, but I'm excited tonight. Plastic Disease is going to be doing my favorite one, which is Club Sanctuary. Yeah, I've known Vamp Feline since before she DJ'd. She and her significant other, who is Ricky Stranger, they not only both DJ, but they are two of the best photographers, probably the best photographers of people I've ever met. They do, and pets, critters and stuff. They do absolutely awesome photos. They've taken a ton of awesome photos of me and my boyfriend. We've been out dancing and at events and things. So that's kind of first how I got to know her. And then we realized we both love cats. But unfortunately, right when we were going to start hanging out, yep, Surly Wench, at the Surly Wench. um, right when we were going to start hanging out, she got hurt. She really hurt her leg last year, and it took a while for her to recover. I was so happy to like see her able to stand and DJ and dance, and then of course we're like, yay, now we can hang out, and then quarantine kicked in. So I'm hoping after all this we'll actually get to do that. Yeah, she and Ricky are like just the nicest couple and some of the nicest people I've ever met. And I feel like that about a lot of the people I met from the Wench. Plastic Disease, Tamara, she's amazing. Another one of our DJs, Eric, who goes by Noir Tech, he's not doing streaming, I think because they've got their kids at home and it's just a lot right now. But he's one of my favorite DJs. He does all their like 80s nights and stuff. So yeah, if you told me 10 years ago I was going to end up staying in Tucson more than the year or two that I planned and becoming friends with all these crazy DJs and things like that, doing regular events for Bookmans and things like all that stuff I've gotten to do. I never would have seen that coming, but I consider it a blessing. I've just had such a great experience with everybody. And here, the place that we go dancing, the Surly Wench, is just amazing. Everybody is really friendly and accepting. I've seen, like, we get people in their 80s on the dance floor, we get people who've just turned 21 on the dance floor. We get people in full cowboy outfits with spurs. I once saw somebody in a full like Disney sorcerer outfit, and it was not for a theme event. They were just out there dancing. So, especially like at the Surly Wench and a few of the other places, our bar, they're just really accepting, chill places to be. And it's very different if you've come from a place like I grew up in a tiny town on the East Coast, and then I lived in Sedona, which I will never ever do again. And I lived in San Francisco and in LA and then in Flagstaff before I ended up in Tucson. And I never felt that comfortable going out in LA that much because there was a lot of issues where you couldn't park that near to venues. A lot of the bars were very narrow. People were very pushy. It was just a very different environment. So especially if I didn't have like a boyfriend or friend with me, like going out by myself, they still do fine line. So don't do the I'm old thing. I'm old too. But yeah, they still do a fun line night at the Wench twice a month. Well, when they're open. And I don't think Stubby, who's our DJ from that, is doing streaming either. At least nobody's shared anything with me if he has done. But yeah, we still have fine line. all the old school stuff. I love that it's such a mixed crowd, though it's all different ages. But yeah, I thought I'd be here for a couple of years. I moved to Tucson for a number of reasons, but the main one was to do wildlife and botanical illustration classes at the Desert Museum because it's one of the few art schools and certainly few affordable art schools where you can uh, learn from people who illustrate for field guides and learn from live animals. And I was going to be here for a couple of years, and then 13 years later, I own a house. But it's such a great, I mean, there's so many things here. We have a great reptile show, we have a great book festival, we have great movie theaters, we have everything you kind of want. We even have round one now, so all the video game arcade stuff you could want. But in addition to all of that, we're still really affordable. We have fairly minimal traffic and great hiking. You can easily get out of any place that feels like a city. I live near a place called Sabino Canyon where you can just be out in the woods in about 10 minutes, which is amazing. So obviously, I like the woods. I'm sitting here painting. Yes, W still choose. Yes, we also have the Gem and Mineral Show here, which is a huge event that did happen this year, kind of right before everything. I thought it was hysterical that that happened, and then like a week later, they were like, "No, you can't possibly have Festival of Books," and I was like, "You just had like a 6 week Gem and Mineral Show with people from all over the world, and now you don't want us to have Festival of Books? Isn't it kind of a bit late to be worrying about that?" But yeah, they canceled the book festival kind of last minute, which was pretty rough. And that was like 3 or 4 weeks before I went kind of more into quarantine. So yeah, I'm just kind of working on building a little more of her figure inside the tree here. And I'm probably going to put some highlights and things back in here, but I want to get kind of some more of the shadows in here that I want. The jackalope or the lopajack? Because I've done both. Dragon Soul is saying that my jackalope picture is adorable, and I was wondering which one. Because the jackalope is the one that is a rabbit with. It's essentially a version of the German Warburtinger. It's a rabbit with other animal parts, usually deer antlers, which is weird because it's supposed to be antelope merge, but they've always put deer antlers on it, not antelope antlers. Questions I've always had. But then the lopajack I did is an inverted one where it's more antelope with jackrabbit added versus jackrabbit with antelope. Weird things we spend. We did a whole theme kind of the end of last year in Patreon for reversed hybrids, and a lot of them are in the book that's coming out tomorrow. So there are kind of reversed mermaids and reversed gorgons. So that means it's a snake with human heads. That was a really hard one. The baby one in the book. Oh, did I put it? Oh, the first book. Yeah, the first of the two books does have a baby jackalope in it. I've painted actually a bunch of jackalopes over the years. Being from an area where they are quite common. I have heard that there is like a Southwest or I think it's Midwest jackalope festival somewhere that I would love to like just go check. It's like a weird fun thing to go attend, right? There's so many weird little stories and legends kind of in the Southwest, and we tend to have a lot of our movies and books in America focused on all of the European ones, and I think that's a little sad. I mean, love those ones too, but we have cactus cats and jackalopes and the snallygaster from kind of like the more the East Coast. I love those ones too. I think they deserve equal attention. So yeah, if you like jackalopes, the German version, the Warpertinger, has even more animals for it, and I did one of those in my, I think it's in my Earth Creatures book. I'm pretty sure it is. Um, oh, we got a whole bunch of people watching now. Awesome. You never know what time is best for streaming. I'm always trying to kind of figure that out. And I'm experimenting with using an actual artist cam. The skunk ape, that's true. And then Australia has the Oh gosh, I put the Bunyip. I love the Bunyip. I put him in one book. So I probably wouldn't be an artist or an author had they had cryptozoology about 10 years earlier, because I would have just studied that at school and become a cryptozoologist, which is someone who basically, it's kind of a combination of zoology and anthropology as related to myths and legends about creatures and determining if they really exist, which is really, really cool. And I definitely have referenced a lot of cryptozoology websites and books um, in my own work, as far as kind of trying to include um, some of those ideas and variants and theories. But yeah, I love mythology, I love folklore, I love creatures and wildlife of all types, so they definitely kind of all somehow end up being a part of my job. I try to figure out what I would most love to create and then throw those ideas at my Patreon subscribers and then let them come back with ideas. Oh, what's the other one? I know he's in my there's a Mexican creature that's in my Water Dragons book, which was one of the first guides I did. I can't think what it's called, but it's like a pigfish. That one's really weird too, because a lot of places have stories that were told to children to try to deter them from trying to ever go into water or swimming on their own. And a lot of times these involve ghosts or monsters that live in the water, and some of them are really weird. The yeah, the hogfish creature, that one is really strange. I have tons of books of fairy tales from all over the world that I have as a resource. I have a ton of cryptozoology books here. I basically have like way too many, way too many books in my house. They're for research, right? I like I guess it's the name of this album, which is Felt Cute Might Delete Later. That's a cool name for an album. So yeah, for those of you guys who tune in before, we don't usually have music, but I actually found how to do Twitch safe radio that's not copyrighted, that we're allowed to have on the background. I added a camera of me. Hi, I'm not that scary. I did think it was really funny. I found out in one of the DJ streams the other night, someone who's been a fan of mine for a while, who I know in person here in Tucson, thought I was younger than she was, and I'm about 10 years older there. So she was off by about 12 years. I was like, whoa, I don't think I look that young for my age. I used to, but I think I have a few more wrinkles now. And I have started to find silver hairs. I don't have any gray hairs. I have silver hairs, which I'm okay with. I think that's pretty magical. There's a really cool book. I think it's called The Fairy Rebel by Lynn Reed Banks, who wrote The Indian in the Cupboard. And she wrote this really short little book, which is an absolutely amazing story. And as I recall, the character has, I think it's silver hair, not blue hair, but she has like one little bit of fairy hair that's sort of hidden. But yeah, it really brings you to the whole be careful what you wish for, because the girl in the book at one point gets this sort of like a magic wand where she can duplicate things. Like if she taps a chocolate bar with it, she has two chocolate bars. And as a kid, that's what everyone dreams of, right? Like, oh my gosh, I can make endless chocolate bars or stuffed animals or toys. But then it's kind of like a branch of thorns or something, that the wand, and it gets stuck to her hand and she can't get it off. And as she's shaking it, she just keeps duplicating more and more stuffed animals, and it's almost like she's gonna die because she's gonna be drowned in stuffed animals, which was quite terrifying to read as a child. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that story stuck with me a long time. And I remember she had, I think it was silver fairy hair that they would hide under her, like just a little piece of it that they would hide under her other hair or try to dye back. I'm still waiting for someone to do a really good version of the Indian in the Cupboard, because the movie that we had a while ago just did not do unfortunately did not do those books justice. And there was a whole series of them with like an ongoing, very complex storyline as to the characters and things. And I definitely enjoyed reading those as a kid. So yes, this super fancy way that I create texture on tree roots is so I have kind of my bark in there in a light color, and then I just go back and forth with my brush and I scribble. And then if it stands out too much, I blend it in with a little bit of water, and it becomes a tree root. Let's try to scoot this up a little so we can work a little more on the tree roots at the bottom here. I've just kind of kept the stream going. This might be the longest one. I think I've never gone much past 2 hours, and we're definitely past 2 hours now, but so I might have to split this into a few videos for YouTube. But this is technically my day off painting. Take a day off from painting and shipping and work, and what do? I paint. But I guess that shows I just do things that I love. And thank you guys for hanging out and tuning in. If you're not already following me on Twitch and you want to get notified of when I'm streaming, please feel free to follow me because it super helps people out to have followers. And then tomorrow morning I'm going to be doing a cool book release on Twitch. It is going to be at 10:30 Arizona time. And we're going to be showing my new 300-page book, which I know some people out there already have because if you've backed on the Kickstarter, you already have your paperbacks. I don't release the book until the paperbacks and digital copies have already gone out to people who helped to publish the book and get it out there. So I'm going to be doing that, and I'm going to be showing some of my process from like sketchbooks, and my research process, and like all the things about cryptozoology and mythology, and how I kind of use all of those things to create the creatures in the books. So it should be a pretty cool stream because I'm going to talk a lot about that whole part of creating, which if you've seen me at conventions, I do panels on that sometimes, but I don't think we've done like a Twitch stream or a YouTube video or anything on that. So I think that'd be pretty cool to kind of cover. I think I'm not getting this enough on camera. I'm trying to slide it up here. Let's see if I can get my camera a little higher up for you guys. It's a little tricky with the there we go with the there we go. Maybe that kind of work with the there we go. Okay, that did not work. With the camera display I have here, it's a little tricky to there we are. I'll just slide this over a bit. There we go. Now I can show more of it. It's a little tricky with the gooseneck on this camera to get it high enough up to really show more. I really want to show more while I'm working on the bottom here. And I can't push the painting more that way because it has there's a wall and a window there. But I'm pretty happy with how my new camera is, well, my old new camera is set up, and kind of the fact that I can do a lot more in streams now. We've got some music going on. I'm trying to learn. I watched like 10 other streams, kind of on the days I wasn't streaming or times I wasn't streaming. I've been watching a lot of other artists stream and kind of seeing what they're doing and what people like. Figuring out how to incorporate that. But yeah, I was trying to buy another camera and it wasn't really an option. And normally what I would do is just have a webcam from my computer and then a webcam and then the camera that I'm using for my art. But this computer was like a separate desktop and monitor, so the monitor does not have a webcam in it. So, and normally they're like $20, but I guess everybody has been buying them for obvious reasons. They're all doing work from home and stuff like that. So then I felt like a dummy when I realized I had a camera in my older cell phone that would work just fine. I wish I could take credit for that, but My boyfriend was actually planning on streaming from his cell phone camera. So then I set up mine, and then I remembered, wait a minute, I've got my old cell phone right here, and it still has a good camera in it. So, yay! Yeah, I just want to build like some cool sorts of root patterns and things going on here for kind of these lower parts. And I'll go ahead and make a bit more of this stand out highlights if I need to. Right now, I'm just trying to get everything in there basically. And thank you guys so much for hanging out and watching. I just feel honored when people want to watch me paint, or even more when they want to like hang my paintings on their walls. Or I think to me the biggest one is when they want to hang my paintings on their kids' walls, or their kids want them there, because it means they're at a hair. There we go. It means they're growing up with my art on their walls, and that to me is like a huge honor because I grew up with art on my walls that really kind of impacted me for my whole life, that inspired me to create things. So, aw, you have over 20 of my prints in your room? That's awesome. I hope it's not a creepy stalker wall thing. I had some friends who had a lot of my prints over the years, and I asked them what they did with them all, and they said, you know, in serial killer movies where they make like these walls of the people they're gonna have as their victims, it's like that, but instead of photos of our victims, it's your art. And I was like, that's probably the creepiest way someone has described a wall of art ever. I don't know how I feel about that. Aw, that's right, because you have a lot of my little 4x6 prints too. Well, thank you. That's awesome. I grew up with some posters from Duelist magazine of different artists on my wall. And when we moved cross country to Sedona when I was 19, I had a box of all of the art prints that I'd collected from artists I loved at conventions and those posters and things. And unfortunately, it was one of 3 boxes in our moving van that got wet. And by the time we got it, it was moldy, so I couldn't even, there was no way to save it. But the happy thing is, many years later, I found one of those artists at a convention, and he had limited edition prints of the poster I'd had on my wall as a kid. And they were only $30, which made me really, really happy. So now I have a numbered limited edition print on my wall of that same painting that made me want to be an artist. Oh, I forgot about those test prints. Yeah, I've learned a lot since I moved to Tucson and was kind of teaching classes, which is when Michaela knew me from. I keep thinking it isn't that long ago, and then I'm like, no, it's like 13 years ago, but it doesn't feel like it's that long ago, but it is. And this part here is going to have awesome mushrooms in it. I think my boyfriend is in a cool virtual reality club. If I look this way, I can actually see what he sees in virtual reality on his computer screen. So I think he's in a pub or other club with a bunch of people with weird animal ears. So at least people have that, like they're all cooped up at home, but at least there's virtual reality. We have Twitch, awesome things like that. I think that makes a pretty big difference. Why did our music stop? Maybe it doesn't like that one. There we go. Sometimes it'll think it's playing one, and I don't know if it just is not working because it doesn't play anything, and I have to hit like go to the next song, and then it's fine. So yeah, these are going to be like very mossy sort of branches and things over here. They're going to have little mushrooms on them, and as you can see, like a painting like this is a lot more complicated than a little, like I've done a lot of half-hour and hour ones on stream, and this one is kind of more of a work on it over time for a bit piece. No, awesome to me that like I've been like a part of Michaela's life for a while because she came into my classes when she was 13 or 14 and now we're like almost that many years later. That's crazy. I met a freshman art student at U of A who saw me at a tiny event when I lived in Flagstaff. I last minute got pulled into this kind of mini art festival at a nursing home. And I met her and her brother when she was like 7 years old, and I completely forgot about it till she showed up in one of my art classes at Maker House in Tucson back when we had Maker House. And then I felt really old. So it didn't seem like that. Oh, that was a flag stuff a couple of years ago. And then this girl I met there when she was 7 is in college. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm getting old. I don't mind. I think this it's really sad this whole idea of like once you're past a certain age, 30, 40, 50, whatever your life is over or you're too old to do things. Just silly. You're never too old to do things. You can always try new things. You can always learn how to paint or dance or write. And I speak from experience as someone who thought they would never be good at art or anything. Two brothers who were kind of prodigies, and I was not really good at anything at a young age, and really just had to figure out my own stuff. Which long term, I think I ended up being much more stable than either of my brothers because I don't really expect or count on the approval from anyone. Like having people who like my work is amazing, and it is a huge blessing, and I'm very thankful for it. But it's not why I create. I started creating as just something I really enjoyed to do, and it grew from there. So I think I ended up with kind of a healthier outlook, and for me, the quarantine's been a bit easier because I don't really count on other people to approve or entertain or make me feel good about myself or distract me from myself for the most part. And I'm kind of used to living with myself. Um, but I had this kind of thing in my head when I was 14 years old, and I had no way to get it out of my head. It has taken me from 14 to 38 to be able to do it, and I still feel like I have a long way to go. So, you might have the imagination. I think it's better to have the imagination and not the technical skill, honestly, because you can learn the technical skill. And if you have a harder time connecting with your imagination, I mean, you can learn that too, but it takes, I think, more work and a lot of weird exercises and things to really learn all of that. And I read a blog post, I won't say who it's by because I'm too nice to do that, but I don't know, sometime last year about somebody who was saying that it ruins art and writing to have processes for creating that takes the magic away and makes it too mechanical. And I don't think that's the case because you can still have something be magical and use rituals or tools or techniques to access that magic. And that's kind of what I think the techniques for getting past fear of art or fear of writing or artist block are. They're just ways to access that magical part of your creativity. And I 150% believe it's something everybody has. I mean, I was told in art classes that I would never be able to do it professionally, that I would never amount to anything in my life. And here we are, some 20 some odd, 25, 28 years later. And I teach art classes sometimes. I definitely do a lot of online teaching, but I used to teach in person. And so I'm kind of glad I had those experiences, even though they were very hard when I was younger, because they made me realize that the thing is, it's really easy for us to say, I wish I could do that, but you have to be born able to do that. Because if you have to be born able to do it, then there's no point in trying if you're not born able to do it. But if it's something anybody can learn and you want to do it, but you can't, that kind of puts it on you as not having put the effort or the time in. So I think it's kind of a scapegoat thing to say, oh, you've just got to be born with talent. Because you might be talented at one thing or another based on the experiences in your young life. You might be better at drawing machines or drawing hands, but you're not going to be good at drawing everything. And if you're good at drawing technical things from life, you're not going to necessarily be good at creating things from your imagination. So there's always areas you have to work on. And I really truly believe that anyone can create. You just have to find your way of doing it. And I think it's really sad. There's a wonderful book, and I really have to go dig this out so I can tell everyone what it is and recommend it. But I used to collect a lot of books. I always recommend The Artist's Way to people, but I want to say there's like a book called maybe License to Create that's kind of the guy did kind of a sketch journal in a book. I want to say his name is Gregory something. I'm really bad at, at remembering this, but he said it would be really funny if we thought about driving cars the way we think about art or music or writing. And if we did that, we'd tell our kids, yes, honey, you can drive a car, provided you showed the ability to do so without any training in the first 4 or 5 years of your life, and you can make millions of dollars doing it. And it sounds really silly if you say that about driving a car. So why do we say those things about art or writing? It's a skill. And it doesn't make it any less magical or beneficial or meditative or amazing, the fact that it is something that you can learn. I think it just makes it more accessible. And I've never regretted encouraging anyone to create. I think we all network and help each other out, and anyone I've encouraged to create who's then gone on to actually do it professionally, which is totally up to you. You don't have to do that, but some folks have. They've ended up referring people back to me. So I think it's probably gotten me more sales and business in the long run. So I don't really see it as a competition because all of us are so different. Um, there's definitely people whose influence you can see in my work, especially forest pieces like this, because I love Arthur Rackham, who did some of the early fairy tale illustrations. He really kind of pioneered the way that we perceive fairy tales visually in the modern world. And I love um, Miyazaki. I love Brian Froud, who did the designs for Labyrinth. And I think you can see all those influences in my work. But I also still think it's my own style based on my own experiences and places I've been and things I've done in my life. And everyone's experiences are different, so everyone has something unique to share with the world. And I think it's very sad if you never get to share that. And it might be painting or drawing or writing, it might be music, it might be inventing new recipes, it might be counseling people, whatever your thing is. But even if that's not what you do for your main part of your life or your job, it's good to kind of explore those things. So I think they help improve every part, like especially if you work a really high stress day job. If you're a lawyer or a doctor, you work things that are very mentally draining and stressful. It is really really good to have something that uses more of the artistic side of your brain to help you relax. That's why adult coloring is a big deal now, and those sorts of things. A lot more art classes and stuff kind of going on that are more accessible to adults, because it's important to have that side of things. Otherwise, I think you kind of go nuts after a while if you don't kind of balance those issues out in your life. As someone who used to work a very high stress technical job, I can say that like maybe I was making a lot of money, but I think I was shortening my lifespan just from the stress and what it was doing to my health. So yeah, I'm probably gonna knock off pretty soon. We're not gonna finish this today because it's got so much detail left to go in. I have to deal with little highlights and paint all these little mushrooms and things. But I think you guys have gotten a pretty good view of. I mean, the fact that we did this in 2.5 hours is pretty cool. I already had a sketch to begin with, but really kind of see how she's coming along. And I can wait and finish her on stream if that's something you guys want, so that the whole piece will be here versus me just showing a finished one at some point. Um, yeah, I think I'm gonna need a break pretty soon. Usually about 2 to 3 hours is what I can do on a piece, and then need to stretch and move around and do something else for a little bit, or it's not so good for my back. But thank you guys for hanging out. Hopefully you've had a good time. Hopefully we've gotten a good test of the new camera and everything, and you've had a good time and fun and are staying safe and washing your hands and all those things that I tell you guys every time. And I will probably see a bunch of you guys tonight if you're going to the Club Sanctuary thing, which is in Plastic Disease's Twitch stream. Oh, thank you, DJ, for saying it's relaxing. I find like paintings like this are actually very relaxing for me, especially if I've already got them kind of penciled out, because I can just sort of sit there and we artists call it noodling. Oh, and thank you, Aminat, and thank you for all those subscriptions and gift subscriptions and stuff. That's awesome. That every little bit really helps. And I wouldn't consider myself a starving artist. I think I do pretty good normally, but right now, the state of the world, I think a lot of people are worried, so I'm kind of slightly worried about money, but trying to make it work and focus on creating and those things, because I think worrying about it to an extreme isn't going to really help anyone. So, but thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will be back tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. Arizona time for our awesome book release. I'm going to be showing you guys some of the 300-page book I just finished. I know some of you guys already have that. I'll talk a little bit about the previous book too. I'll have them both here. We'll be celebrating the paperback and the Kindle release of the book. And I'm gonna move the camera so I'm not like this and then looking at the chat. I'm gonna actually move the camera that away for tomorrow morning, so it's more like I can actually look at the chat. And then I'm actually gonna be showing my sketchbooks, and I'll even drag out some of the ones from when I was a kid because that should be fun. I have some of those still, but I'll show kind of my sketchbooks and creative process about how I generate ideas and where they come from and how it ends up in a book. And I'll be chatting and answering questions. And if we end up with not a lot of people and everyone's really bored, then maybe we'll go back to this painting, or I'll do some other sketching on camera. Maybe we'll invent some new creatures. So thank you for hanging out with me on your Saturday morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. And I hope you guys have an awesome day and stay safe and try not to let stuff get to you too much in the world, because we just all have to kind of hang in there right now. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you soon.